Welcome, my name is Christopher Peter. This week is a critical one between the official start of the NFL regular season and the end of the off-season and preseason activity. Along with that comes the point where all 32 NFL franchises made the tough decisions on who will take part in their chase for the Lombardi Trophy, who will not take fully part but help prepare those who make the cut, and who will need to find another team or line of work until next March. At the end of spring training in baseball, the players not making the final 26 simply go down to the minor league affiliates for the potential to be called up for action later. Same with hockey and basketball to some degree with the G League. But football does not have guaranteed contracts, and what you did last year may only get you the opportunity to compete for a sport this year. Football is the ultimate meritocracy if you ignore the fact that some talents get more opportunities than those drafted below them. But that is life. Every organization in any industry in the world, not a family-owned and operated business, will have a ranking of prospective talent. The best perceived ones get the most chances and the lessers are out on their first mistake. That is the challenge we all must face and overcome. The beauty of sports is that there is instant feedback. There are weekly events that determine whether you are closer to success or a step backwards. And the market gets to watch how well you can adjust to those decision points and how well the investments that they will announce this week were the right ones or regrettable opportunities missed. There will be a flurry of activity as people who did not make the cut in their camps will have the opportunity to jump on with another team. Players will be traded rather than resigned with their current teams. And areas that seemed like a weakness through camp may now be bolstered by talent elsewhere. A great time of the year. I always keep in mind that while it is interesting to see who makes the final roster, there are real emotions out there for the players who do not make the cut. As much as we acknowledge and accept that we operate in sink or swim environments, I think we can be compassionate to the fact there will be people who are so invested in their dreams who will now have to wake up to a different life. For those individuals, I hope that they do not look at this moment as a failure, just a moment of inspiration to fuel your fire to burn hotter or a motivation to make that next chapter the best fit for you and those who depend and support you. You only fail in life when you give up. There is always another door to open and other roads to travel. Sometimes you will look back and realize how setbacks make you better prepared for your next go at it, or makes you find a path more suitable to your attributes. Now let us start talking about sports. First, we gotta begin with what matters most. The biggest strength of my Philadelphia Eagles is not just their talented roster, but their culture and strategic approach to roster management, player development, and transitioning to what is next without the typical anchoring to the here and now. Great culture built around the players, great process of organizational identity, and consistency in values, all help build a good resilient team. The fortunate part for my Philadelphia Eagles is that there is not a whole lot of expected change that needed to come this off-season and preseason. As I discussed before, there was a great deal of talent on the defensive side that earned contracts well outside of the available cap or retired. Fortunately, there are younger players already on the roster and the draft helps to add depth to fill those needs. A much different approach from the last time we were coming off a Super Bowl win, where the roster was veteran-heavy and many at the end of their prime or even their careers, or the year after we lost to the Chiefs where the entire defense was rebuilt. The returning players are still very much in their prime and there is plenty of second-year and third-year talent to combine with the rookies and free agents. The question is how well the youth can fill those shoes and how many will actually reach their potential and remain healthy and productive. We all want to see young players grow from year to year. So when the team may need to move on from a veteran for money reason or otherwise, there is a player waiting in the wings. That is why the Eagles have been able to sustain success for as long as they have by identifying talent and managing for both the present and the future. Winning the Super Bowl last year probably helped make it more palatable to see some players leave and turn key positions over to younger players. Otherwise, yes, Eagles fans will worry that if we kept this player one more year, would that have made the difference? But the team needs to continue to evolve and refresh. For instance, the reported play of the players vying to replace Big Play Slay in the lineup has been somewhat underwhelming, according to local reporters, and backed up by the trade for a veteran option. Ringo has not really used the experience of playing in the system to his advantage. Adoree Jackson gave him a run for the spot and the Eagles then added Ja'Cory Bennett to the mix. Not all three made the roster, but I would guess that at some point Bennett will become the starter opposite of Q, once he fully learns the defense and his role. He has played fairly well in terms of tight coverage, despite some completions. At the same time, once Vic starts scheming against teams, Ringo and Jackson may look better than they currently do. Howie has made a number of trades this camp and one was for another wide receiver. For the second year in a row, a wideout will enter the roster from a trade during camp. At least this trade was a bit earlier, which should allow Mechie to catch up faster. Offense is probably a bit more complicated to learn on the fly with a new team, and I like the trade to add another wide receiver talent to the mix. especially since we lost Johnny Wilson due to a season-ending injury. Having a talented prospect in Mechie may be a good fit. Mechie still has to learn the playbook as well. And we must remember that Philly has been a place for players to resurrect their careers, like Becton and Braun from last year. Good thing we were able to keep Braun. And Jahan Dotson also is showing positive signs of fully showing his talents, as we saw him get better as the year went last year, despite being a real late addition. Overall, I think the Eagles still have a great deal of talent on both sides of the ball. The offensive line is largely the same minus Becton, but Tyler Steen won the job last year out of camp as well. Hopefully Landon Dickerson is able to return and stay healthy, as he is one of the best guards in the league. Lane Johnson is still here. And Jordan Mailata. Despite the concern with the secondary opposite of Q, the Eagles still have a fierce defense. The exciting whites are still there. The line is still there with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and new Eagles to replace Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, who found riches elsewhere. Seems like we hit another home run in the first round with Jihad Campbell. Finally, we have some depth at linebackers, a position group that we Eagles fans once complained that Howie did not invest enough in this area in the past. But it is now a strength of ours, featuring our All-Pro in Zach Braun. Once Nakobe Dean comes back, we will have a plethora of talent, including Jeremiah Trotter Jr., so the defense should have the right talent. The cuts to the roster are not that surprising, other than the fact that rookie Kyle McCord was cut, as the Eagles tend to like having a young quarterback talent to develop, but McCord did not play well when it mattered. So we had to go elsewhere to fill the third quarterback spots with Sam Howell, who was replaced by former Eagles starter Carson Wentz, who is now on his 7th team. Imagine that. But hopefully Wentz does well. Not many surprises with the player moves, but we have to hope that the team connects and gels like it did last year. We cannot expect that magic to simply roll over to this year. Our core appears to put in the work and hope that we see it come to fruition again. They have a good roster and opportunity. Just need to make it work, keep trusting their process, and stay healthy. Jerry Jones, self-admittedly, is effective at making sure the media is constantly discussing his Dallas Cowboys, and the contract dispute with Micah Parsons is definitely going to make the sports pundits talk about his team from morning to night. And naturally, the field of pundits being former players, beat writers, and other people who default to the player's side, the position is that Jones should have paid Parsons a long time ago, and they are not wrong. Let us look at the opposing view for a moment. For any top talent on a rookie deal, you have essentially not just 5 years, but 7 years if you factor in the franchise tag. Not the most effective use of cap dollars, but you may look at it from the point of view of what tools you have at your disposal. So, in this case, Jerry is technically correct in his proclamation that Parsons is essentially on a 3-year contract. Where he is technically wrong is believing that a person should disregard the traditional and prescribed process in order to accommodate your negotiating approach. I do not think it is egregious to discuss contracts directly with the player, but you should be open to including the agent when the player feels that is appropriate, because that is his right. Sometimes the third party, as he refers to them, may get in the way, but players are experts in football, not contract law, collective bargaining, and finance, just like many owners outside of the football world, and have to trust the expertise of others to make sure the right decisions are made. Being a maverick or a gambler may be appealing and help spur innovation in certain situations, but at some point you have to stabilize the ship and operate with a longer-term view. Especially when the data is countering your perspective and the results are no longer where you want them to be. The problem with gamblers is the tendency to double down on a failed run rather than rethinking their approach or strategy. Sometimes what gets you to where you are will not keep you there, so you need to have a plan for the next phase. For 30 years, Jones has not seen his team reach a conference championship game, so Cowboys haters may look at the successful years as a fluke and the current streak as the norm. I dislike the Cowboys, but I am willing to acknowledge that most teams go through long periods of complacency and non-competitive play. Jones has done well to identify talent in the draft, but has never really consistently built a team that has depth or complementary parts, and the culture may be something people want to question. There is more pressure on a team that has not won in 3 decades or even reached their conference championship than any team in all of sports. At the same time, this team that has not adequately performed with its iconic owner is the most valuable franchise in all of sports. The success in the boardroom, merchandising, brand management has not led to success at its core function, but it affords the team the resources to do so if it ever decides to change course. Some could argue that it is highly contradictory for an organization that is essentially able to print money is so willing to spend top-of-the-market money on contracts simply because of timing and how it structures agreements. In the modern business world, you want high revenues with increasing profitability. As a fan of a rival of the Cowboys, I enjoy every bit of the drama and the end-of-season flubs. As a political economist, I look at the situation as a phenomenon where money clouds the issues that can prevent an organization from being more effective and efficient and protect a competitive advantage, sell more jerseys, hats, and merch to fans that will watch some other team in the new year still playing football. Maybe we might want to think that they were lucky and fortunate to field the team in the 90s and land Jimmy Johnson, or early success fueled an ego that is yet to be set aside. In any negotiation, you cannot make it about you. It has to be about the bigger picture. In a competitive division, you might want to reach a deal with your best talents that make them want to play for more than just the check. All 32 teams have the framework of what will be their 53-man roster, despite some changes that will take place over the next couple days. Cleveland has answered the question many people were asking. We all figured it would be Joe Flacco, but it was questionable how many of the rookies they would keep. Turns out both. To make room for the rookies, the Browns sent Kenny Pickett to his fourth team in 3 years. Now, he will back up Geno Smith for the Oakland Raiders, whose original starter turned backup Aiden Connell will potentially miss half the season. The Raiders have a new coach and direction, but play in a difficult division. The Bengals reached a deal with Trey Hendrickson, adding money to this year's salary, before he will become a free agent in the offseason. Hendrickson was the unfortunate person left out of the splurge that the Bengals had to do to keep key members of their offense. As a small market team, they had to make tough choices between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson. The original goal of more years and higher guaranteed money is a tall ask for many players on teams with significant investments elsewhere. Not sure for the Bengals they made the best decision strategically in the long term. He is a great talent, but maybe trading him to a team that would have given him a long-term deal could have yielded resources to build up that porous defense. The Washington Commanders reached a deal with their star wideout, agreeing to a 3-year deal at $32 million a year. Terry was a good player for the Commanders, but not sure he is really at D.K. Metcalf's level. Being a loyal and consistent leader for a chaotic franchise should mean something when the team finally stabilizes. Cam Hayward ends his hold-in with the Pittsburgh Steelers without a new deal. The Steelers have probably the most interesting potential for this season, which could be boom or bust. A lot is riding on the last hurrah of Aaron Rodgers. They were active heavily on defense as well, bringing in Slay and Jalen Ramsey. The Steelers are my second favorite team and hopefully they are competitive. A lot riding on veterans outside of their prime. It will be very interesting to see where the San Francisco 49ers end up. They had to make cap sacrifices in order to pay their quarterback Brock Purdy, letting many players walk and trading away Deebo Samuel. The team that seems to lose to the Chiefs every 3 years may not be competitive. Is McCaffrey healthy? We will see. So much is made of the cut-down day and the initial depth chart, but there will be a great deal of change throughout the season. Players that earned starting spots may relinquish them to players who have redeemed themselves in action that actually matters. So we cannot be too caught up in the moment of questioning why this player is higher than that one. Starters change. Almost every year a team is sparked by a change in lineup.
Football is king, but let us close with our second favorite sport, which is America's pastime, baseball. The baseball season is such a long grind. 162 games every year. Players compete for 9 innings almost every day. At night. In the heat of the summer sun during the day. For fans, I think the hardest aspect can be the streaks. At the beginning of one month you feel like scheduling a World Series appearance because your team is winning. By the end of that month, you just need them to hold on and find consistency. For our Phillies, they have taken control of the National League East, but during this production, they are getting another defeat handed to them by the New York Mets, who have been on quite the slide themselves. As we have said, the division race will go down to the end of the season. These two teams are too talented to get away from each other. The Mets raced out to an early division lead after an off-season of splurging. But the Phillies steadied the ship and played good baseball for months while the Mets' offense cooled off. But both teams may have found their swagger and made key moves at the trade deadline. Losing Zach Wheeler for the rest of the season will be tough. But the most important thing is that he addresses the issues and restores his health. Get well and see you next year. Hopefully the rest of our Phillies starters hold the fort while our ace heals up. We need our pitching to do better than they did tonight. But it is one series. In the sport of baseball, the journey is exciting, but it can be somewhat predictable, as the team with the highest payroll will usually make it to the end. More likely than not, the investments made pay off rather quickly, but the back end of investments can become an anchor to some degree. We remember how our Phillies held on to some of our World Series winning stars a year or two too long. By contrast, money is not always the defining factor. Regardless of market size or wealth of the owner, every NFL L franchise has the ability to reasonably compete each year. Most may be poised more for a run in the future than the present, but the ability to see progress sooner than later is more likely in football than any other sport. Thanks to the lack of guaranteed contracts. Following decades of what was generally seen as incompetence, a few good decisions from leadership has completely changed how the football world views the Washington Commanders, who reached the NFC championship game last season. Following a few good decisions. Not the 8-year plan we see in other sports. In football, you can trust a good process. There is not a general manager over the last 7 months who decided they would sign the wrong player, draft talent that would never see their full potential, or trade away players that will star elsewhere. Every decision is made following an exhaustive process. And next week we start to see whose efforts pay off this year, ones that give hope for the future, or ones that will lead to organizational change. What is good today can be bad tomorrow. And there are many wary front offices that pore over every decision hoping that their investments pay off. There are only 17 results that truly matter. Not 106th, 2 or 82. 17 days that will decide the outcomes of the past 7+ months for 32 franchises. All starts with our Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys next Thursday night. A big thank you to all of you who experienced the Christopher Peter review, our podcast episodes or our blog posts. Please remember to continue to visit www.crcreview.com for more content and do me a favor and like and subscribe.